The 2018-2019 school budget starts and ends with a theme. The reason why we do so is to remind ourselves why we developed the budget as well as the importance of the budget. The focus of the school district is on engagement. How do we create a more personalized, more innovative, and more creative experience for our students? And so, as we look at budget development, those are the things that guide our thoughts and subsequently our decision making to ensure that the budget helps us to foster a better learning experience for our students. The budget is also the way that we actualize the mission of the school district. The mission statement of the school district is posted in every classroom and, in fact, most spaces across the district. However, the reality of it is most people don't memorize the words of the mission statement, nor do we want people to simply memorize the words of the mission statement. We want people to live the mission statement. So when we think about the budget process focuses on student engagement. How do we ensure a passion or foster a passion for learning? The budget process focuses on innovation. How do we create inquiry-based and integrated experiences, integrating technology into classrooms, technology into work, technology into making us being much more productive as employees of the school district? Cultural competence. How do we focus on success for all? Recognizing that our students come to us with varied experiences, how do we ensure that as a school district we're competent in terms of our interactions with our students? And more important, how do we empower our students to be themselves, to have a sense of significance? The budget focuses on and the mission speaks on about being globally focused. How do we, in fact, prepare our students for college and career competitiveness to be ready, as they say, for the world? That's a primary task of our school district, that when our students leave us, they are, in fact, ready for the next steps in their lives. And the last part of the mission statement speaks to collective work and responsibility. How do we ensure that the school and the community are in alignment with each other in terms of what the expectations of this community our expectations are, and what's our focus, our mission, our objectives as a school system? That alignment is critical. The budget process is built on some foundational principles. We, one, recognize and reticent of the tax cap limitations. The tax cap limitation is not only a levy cap, but it's essentially an expenditure cap. And so we start the process with some limitations in mind. However, while that is the case, as the old adage say, we don't allow the tail to wag the dog. We focus first on programs, what our program needs. So we take a very disciplined and approach to dissecting programs, to analyzing programs, to defining programs. We also recognize that there are legal and contractual obligations, and so subsequently compliance becomes a big part of the budget process, and also being cognizant of the external mandates and cost drivers that impact what we do. Consequently, the process requires many iterations of options and scenarios, recognizing that not all good ideas will be implemented, and in many cases, some of the good ideas spur on other ideas that we may do this year or for future years. So we do look forward to the feedback gained from our various stakeholders throughout the process. And most importantly, when we think about foundational principles that drive the budget, it's important that we ensure that whatever we do with the budget adds value. Add value to the quality of the experience for our students and the quality of experience for our employees. Speaking of value, there are three components that we really look at and break the budget down. How do we make this very complex process relatively simple? And so in so doing, we look at first the value added. The value add speaks about raising student achievement and addressing emerging needs, recognizing that we live in a knowledge economy. Things are constantly changing, information is constantly changing, technology is constantly changing. So how do we look at those things and ensure that as a system we're evolving so we can actually add value to the experience of our students? And in so doing, we look at academic capacity. We look at things such as what are the implications of class size. As a school district, we're growing. We're one of a few school districts across the state that's actually either growing or maintaining size. Most school districts are actually reducing in size. Here at Shen, we've seen constant growth over the years. And so academic capacity means understanding the implications of class sizes, but more importantly, understanding the implications of the composition. Who are the students in our classes? What are their respective needs, and how do we best address those needs? Subsequently, then, that leads to this type of supports that we provide. How do we ensure that services follow needs, that we're equitable in our distribution of resources to target the needs of our students? And finally, then, on the value added is how to ensure that the courses that we're offering are innovative, that they're practical, that they're meeting not only the needs of students today, but the needs of students tomorrow in terms of preparing them to be learners, preparing them to be students, and so they can, in fact, evolve as things evolve. On the other side of the value added coin, so to speak, is the notion of cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness doesn't necessarily mean cutting costs. We're talking about how do we ensure that we're maximizing resources? How do we employ best practices to meet our outcome driven expectations? We start with the end in mind. What do we want to achieve? And so, subsequently, what do we need to do to realize that particular goal? And so, when we think about cost effectiveness, it's about looking at the inputs, the process, and the outcomes that we expect. And so that means leveraging technology. That means strategically repurposing resources. That means managing our personnel very effectively because, in fact, we're a people intensive business. And when you think about it, almost 80% of our budget focuses on salary and benefits. And so personnel management is critical to what we do. So, to ensure that we're on the right path and to ensure consistency and outcome, we start with certain questions in mind. And those questions go back again to our mission statement as a school district. We ask questions such as what else can we do to help ensure that students are finding their passion? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough to be innovative? Are we doing enough to help students, all students, regardless, students with disabilities, students with learning barriers, students with doesn't matter what they bring to the table from A to Z, from our most struggling students to our most accelerated students. We have a responsibility as a system to help all our students reach their full potential. So when we think about the budget process, we ask ourselves that question: what else can we do to help all students succeed? And so subsequently, the equitable allocation of resources is a big question. Are we being equitable? Recognizing that, on the other side of equity is privilege, meaning those who have want to keep. But sometimes we have to make the critical decisions of taking from one in order to better meet the needs of others. And those are the challenges when you have budget constraints that not everyone could have exactly what they want. But as a system, we're always trying to focus on an equitable distribution of resources. So when you think about the budget process, we try to break the budget process out into three big domains, so to speak. One, what are those external cost drivers? And the key part here, cost drivers, things that we don't necessarily directly control, but they have a significant impact on our staff, on our program capacity, such as pension costs. We have two major pension systems that our employees are part of, the teacher retirement system and the employee retirement system. And we recognize the importance of those systems, and we also recognize then when the rates change, we have to plan accordingly so that those increases do not impact our ability to provide instructional programs for our students. Similarly, health insurance. Health insurance is a significant cost for the school district, and so we have to think about how do we manage that over time? How do we engage with brokers to ensure that we're getting the best price points? How do we look at the makeup, the construction of our health insurance plans to ensure that we're not spending money on portions of plan that people don't even use? And so we try to break those plans out to understand what's driving the cost of health insurance and drugs, and subsequently then provide our employees with a quality program without the excess costs. So those are big pieces, and certainly as we look at the federal government and some of the things that's happening there in terms of federal changes pertaining to health insurance, we have to be cognizant of those things and try to figure out how do we plan forward at all times. Similarly, the U.S. Department of Education Education has just changed the education laws, now called ESSA, Every Student Succeed Act. And so now we have to think about how does ESSA impact the New York State Education Department, and consequently impacting us at a local level. So those are some external cost drivers that are often hard to put a figure on. However, those are the things that we have to always be cognizant of. And so we shift to what are we investing? What are the things that as a system we're making a deliberate decision to do? Subsequent our investments. So we're going from cost drivers to investments that we're looking to make. So we're looking to make investments that impact enrollment and class size and class compositions. We're looking at investments that impact innovative practices. We're looking at investments to ensure that we have the ample services to meet the various needs of our students. We're looking at investments to make sure we're maximizing technology. We're looking at investment to ensure that the mental health and wellness of our students are being addressed in a way that's more than sufficient. We're looking also at investments that speaks to professional development. One of the things that we pride ourselves on as a system is in fact investing in our employees. And so this year a major shift to invest in support staff, members of the CSEA contract, and recognizing that group is so diverse that many specialized programs are required. But it's important. It's important that we invest in our employees so they can be at their very best. Consequently, our students will receive the very best experience. On the other side of the investment coin are operational investments. How do we invest in our facilities to ensure that we are future ready? That 10 years from now, the quality experience at Shen is better than it is right now. And so we look at investments in time and space. How are we using space? How are we using time? Class schedule, bell schedule, school schedule. All those things have an impact on time and space. We're looking at investments in security and access. And clearly right now, as we're dealing with the unfortunate realities of a school shooting, security and access is vital to our system. We're looking at transportation for summer school, recognizing that oftentimes the students who need to be in summer school also have other challenges that make arrival at summer school a challenge. And so subsequently, how do we provide transportation in the summertime to eliminate those barriers for our students? And clearly we have transition planning for our administration to make sure that we have the administrative capacity to effectively lead the school district. So those are the things that drive the budget process, the investments that we're deliberately looking to make. The third key component, as I mentioned before, value add and cost effectiveness were the two earlier components. The third key component is looking at the revenue and the tax implications. And so when you think about as a school district, we have been very, very efficient in terms of keeping the tax impact to a very minimum. When we look over the past 3 years, for example, the average true tax rate over the past 3 years is a minus 0.82%, almost a minus 1% tax rate. And so the tax rate has been zero in many for many individuals and slightly above that for others. And so we take pride in ensuring that we're being cost effective, that we're adding value, but we're also being cognizant of the impact on our taxpayers. And a big piece of that pie, or should I say equation, is the tax cap. Several years back, the state passed a tax cap law, and last year our tax cap was 2.97. We went out at a tax rate that was significantly lower than that 2.97. This year the tax cap is at 3.65. We anticipate going out slightly below that tax cap, but the point here is that every year since the tax cap has been in place, we've been below that tax cap, recognizing that we're not trying to just spend to that limit because the limit exists, but we're trying to spend what we need. Because there could be years when that tax cap is so low that we have to ask our voters to exceed that cap because we need additional funds to support the quality programs. So fidelity in the process is important, that the community trusts that we are in fact being good stewards of the funds that we are trusted with, and we invest in those funds in ways that produce a high quality experience for our students. And certainly, as the old adage said, the proof is in the pudding. When you look back at our history, the 5-year budget trend, a 5-year trend, a budget slightly over 2%. When you think about it, that's pretty remarkable considering the fact that we're a growing school district, pretty remarkable considering the diversity of needs of our school district, how things have changed so significant over the past 5 years. Yet we have maintained pretty much a flat line progression in our budgets, with our budgets being right around that 2% mark for over the past 5 years. Similarly, when we look at the distribution of funds within the budget, what we refer to as a three-part budget, clearly you see from year to year, almost 75% consistently from year to year of our budget goes directly for programs and services that impact students in the classroom. And that's how it should be. And so when you look at that and you wonder how are funds being expended in the Shen School District, funds are being largely expended directly towards those programs that impact students. And clearly, the administrative aspect of running a huge system is important. And so when you even look at that piece of it, you're talking about less than 10% of the entire budget goes towards the administrative aspect, not necessarily administrators, but administrative, the running, the operation of the entire school system. And that's also pretty remarkable in a sense. And the remaining portion of it goes towards the capital piece, the upkeep of our facilities. And so 75% on average goes towards direct program, less than 10% towards administrative operational expenditures, and slightly about 15% towards capital upkeep of our facilities. So when you look at that distribution over the 3 years, and in fact you go back further, you'll see a very, very consistent distribution. So as we approach the budget process, there are many, many factors that impact how the budget finally plays out. A big factor is, in fact, the state budget. And so now we are gearing up for advocacy, recognizing the governor executive budget was recently released. And while the numbers were not necessarily unfavorable to Shen, the numbers weren't necessarily favorable as well, because we know that right now we're still reeling from the gap elimination adjustment back from 2009, where about $9 million was reduced from the school district. But more importantly, all school districts across the state are suffering from the fact that the state has yet to allow the foundation formula to run as it should. In other words, provide in every school district that equitable foundation to ensure that the state of New York is upholding this responsibility of equality education for all students. And so we're watching that. We'll be advocating for that in the coming months, recognizing that it's not about necessarily needing more funds, but we need the funds to meet the expectations, the graduation requirements, the work requirements that our students will encounter once they leave high school. And so we want to ensure that we are investing appropriately in our students, that we have the quality programs to expose our students to a wide variety of learning experiences so they can in fact be productive citizens upon graduation from high school. And so when we think about the budget process, the budget truly is not about dollars and cents. It's about the programs and services that we deliver to our students. It's about the quality experiences that we want and expect. And most importantly, it's about our commitment as a school system to excellence. And we believe that, we live that, we value that. We value our commitment to excellence.